this is basically going to be a CV and cover letter workshop, and if we have time, we'll also go into the actual interview process and application process for the MBB firms. My name is Giovanni, and I'm part of MBB101, which is basically a group of current consultants at MBB firms and also incoming consultants. And we're just really passionate about sharing our experiences. We all come from different backgrounds. So I'm personally from a STEM background, and we have people from sort of a medic backgrounds, you know, other humanities, and not necessarily the standard business. So we really hope that through these talks and through the resources on our websites, we can give some comfort and some clarity on the process to all of you guys. Okay, so what are we going to cover then? So we're firstly going to look at what the recruitment process is, to contextualize why we're making the CV and the cover letter in the first place. Then we're going to understand what exactly these firms are looking for, and that will then inform how we build a CV and what content you have to put in. And then, as I said, if we have time, we'll briefly talk about the interview process and how you can start getting ready for that, because it's never too early to begin, in my opinion. So the first step is actually getting the interview, and so I think that's basically why the CV and the cover letter, they're the door openers for you to even get into the room with the consultant and the interviewer and show them what you're capable of. And so it's a really important initial step. If you get past them this early stage, then I think the rest is a lot smoother. And also because the CV is being used for multiple companies that you're applying to, it's a very powerful document. You have this one CV that you tweak slightly for each company, but if it's made well, then it really increases your chances across the board. And so it's particularly important to nail it. And so the first step, obviously, for landing an interview is definitely networking. So, a lot of MBB consultants tell me that when they were applying, they would always try and reach out to existing consultants and sort of people in business backgrounds that they knew, to try and just get their opinion on get some feedback on their CV, their preparation, and just understand what the job's all about, and just also to feel a bit more comfortable speaking with consultants, because at the end of the day, the interviewer will just be a consultant, a partner, or an engagement manager. So really the first step before you even think about your CV is networking and asking people, just talking to people in a relaxed setting. After that, then definitely you've got it sorted in your head, the direction you want to go in, and what other people feel are your strengths. Then you start compiling that in a CV. And then once you've written the CV, you write a cover letter. Now, this isn't required for all of the MBB firms. McKinsey doesn't actually require a cover letter, but Bain and BCG do. So you have to take care of that. Then often there's a sort of a level before the interviews, which are assessments, just to check if you have to check your logic skills and your math skills and so on. And hopefully, once you've sort of paid careful attention to each of these 4 stages, you end up at the first round interview, and that's and already that's a very good position to be in. Not many people get the first round interview to begin with. So as you can see, the 2 topics of today's CV and cover letter, they represent a large chunk of the journey up this mountain to the first interview. And now the recruitment process, which is once you've got the first interview, begins with the case interviews and the personal fit interviews. And so it's this isn't really the focus of today's talk, but it's important to keep in mind that when you this is what's going to happen. Once you make a good CV and a good cover letter, these are going to be the factors that you'll have to overcome, if you are successful. So again, not the main point, but if we do have time, we'll talk about it afterwards. And if anyone has questions about the case interviews and the personal fits, again, I'm more than happy to answer them at the end. And so I think it's important to clarify some sort of myths, because there's a lot of myths surrounding sort of the MBB consulting eligibility and how to get in. And so some people will feel sort of, I don't know, put off just because of these myths that are flying around. So if we can add an element of interaction to this session, I just wanted to sort of hear what you guys think are the true and false answers on this on this page here. So I don't know if somebody wants to raise their hand or just sort of unmute their microphone. Who thinks that an MBA is necessary for getting into an MBB firm? Does anyone know if that's true or false? Feel free to interrupt or type in the chat or something.
It's preferred, I guess. Not mandatory, but I think it's preferred based on whatever I've been seeing on LinkedIn.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, actually, it's not. Yeah, it's not at all mandatory, because when you're applying for the entry-level position, they don't at all expect you to have had an MBA. It's totally normal for people who are coming out of a university, out of an undergrad degree or a master's degree, to not have an MBA. That's totally fine. So you do not need that, and don't feel like your CV or application will be disadvantaged if you don't have it. So really don't feel that way. So the second urban myth that I need to understand whether it's true or false is: do you think that you need years of impressive industry experience to get into MBB firms? If someone wants to share their thoughts with that.
I feel like you don't need it, but they're more likely to hire you if you do have experience.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. Firstly, you're absolutely correct. It's not a necessary trait. Oh, there we go. The X. And I mean, look, it really, the application is. There's many different ways to boost your application, and of course, having some experience, work experience, is always positive. But to have years of impressive industry experience, that's also out of the scope for entry-level positions. And again, it's not expected at all. So don't feel disheartened. And the CV we're going to learn to build together that takes into account, limited work experience, especially during these times of pandemic, where it's even harder, arguably. Now, the third question, which I may have already implicitly answered, do you guys think that you need to have a business-related degree or business-related experience to get into consulting? Don't be shy.
Not necessarily.
Interesting. I mean, I would just say straight up no. No, you don't. It's not even a matter of not necessarily. You don't need it. You don't need it, full stop. I know people who've worked in, STEM students who have done internships at engineering companies. In fact, I know consultants at MBB firms who actually worked as an engineer for like, a good 5 years and then made the switch to consulting. So I wouldn't even say not necessarily. I think it's not at all a limiting factor, and don't feel like put off by that if you're not a business student. Now, fourth point, I need to have outstanding academics. What do you guys think about that?
True.
True?
True.
Okay, sure. Yeah, this is an interesting one. So I actually gave it a sort of a 50%, because it is, MBB firms, of course, are looking for the top tier of students, and having great academics is one way to express that. but you know, it's a multi-factored sort of approach when they're making offers and evaluating whether you're suitable to be a consultant. Having outstanding academics is a very strong indicator. You know, if you have a 1-1, they'll definitely sort of that's definitely, they won't have to read the rest of your CV to be comfortable to sort of invite you to the next stage, for example. But if you do have a 2-1 predicted, or even a 2-2 in some cases, though, I'd recommend you aim for the 2-1 area. You know, that's a good grade. It's not outstanding, but if you have, you know, other strong traits, then it won't really make or break. So again, it's helpful, but it won't define your application if you have other strengths to show for. So now the 5th box, I need to have a degree from a target university. What do you guys think about that? Don't be shy. I should be hearing like 5 voices interrupting each other at the same time. So do feel free to everyone just say yes or no.
I don't think it's true.
Okay.
I think it helps.
Okay. Any other opinions there? All right. Well, yeah, I think, yeah, asthma. Yeah, I think you basically hit it right there. It's sort of a half true, half false one, where it does help. It's one of those things where if they see, this is a top tier university, okay, we don't need to keep reading as much because we know that this person's already got some sort of traits that are good. You know, if they can make it through this university, you know, then we can probably, you know, go straight to the interviews or something like that. So it does help, but again, if you've done other things that are impressive and make you stand out and show that you have the skills to be a great consultant, then do not feel like that's sort of against you. But you know, as you are all at UCL, I don't think that that's necessarily a point you guys have to worry about, because it's got a great reputation, UCL. So don't sort of feel too concerned there. And the last one is an interesting one. I need a referral to get an interview. What do you guys think about that?
I'm sure it would help, but it's definitely not essential.
Yeah, no, exactly, Max. That's right. So basically, it's not at all essential. You don't need it. If you get it, it can help you, but it can also go completely against you, because then if the consultant recommends someone and they're underprepared, then it just affects it just creates a bigger mess, because the consultant who's referred you now has sort of their reputation on the line and things like these. So it can be actually, it can become more complicated than it seems to get referrals. So yeah, basically you don't, a lot of the sort of mystery shrouding the application process is just nonsense. So I hope this makes you all feel a bit more comfortable that none of these things are actually strictly necessary to get in. And we say that actually not just from sort of hearing around, but our MBB 101 team itself is actually composed of people who haven't gone to target universities, who haven't had outstanding academics necessarily. And so I think from our own experiences, we know that that's the case. And so yeah, now we need to understand, what are the MBB firms actually looking for? What skills do they want? And from that, then we'll understand how to communicate it via CV. They want to know, do you have the intellect? Will you get the job done? You know, the partner will immediately think, if I leave this university graduate in front of the managing director of Tesco or something, are you just gonna muck up and leave a bad impression of the firm in a client's eyes? Can I put them in front of a client? And will I enjoy working with them as well? That's an important point. At the end of the day, consultants are also humans. They spend a lot of time working together, and ideally they want to work with someone who's going to be pleasant and then cooperative to work with. So I think these are roughly the 4 buckets we can summarize all of the traits into. And in terms of specific traits, intellect is normally measured by problem solving and numeracy. These are the sorts of traits that are examined in the assessment centers. You know, so you'll get sort of psychometric tests and sort of a logic tests and things like these, and numeracy as well. And then later on, they're tested continually throughout the case interviews too. So it's a big part of the job, because that's what consultants do every day, right? They have to solve problems of clients, and so you know, you really need to demonstrate that. You really have to demonstrate that. Now, will you get the job done is summarized in 3 buckets, and the idea is, when you're working as a consultant, are you able to you know, be left alone and pursue things yourself? Do you have the initiative to you know, chase leads without always, you know, asking for help from your supervisor or the partner on the case? And I think that's the way MBB firms like to phrase it, is as leadership, personal impact, and entrepreneurial drive. So these are the 3 sort of, I don't know, these are the buzzwords that the MBB firms like to use specifically when they're talking about what they look for in a candidate, and that's why they're underlined as well, because these are the ones that they explicitly use. And now, can I put them in front of a client? These, I think, you know, the bottom 2 buckets are much more subtle and soft in terms of how to measure them. But you know, do you have strong written communication? Do you have strong oral communication? The CV will be the first example of your written communication, and if you have a sharply written CV, then that totally changes the game. I mean, for context, for example, during my partner interview, the partner said that he was actually going to cancel you know, all the interviews for that cycle because something had popped up, and then he said to me, but actually I saw your CV, and it was so sort of impressive that he decided to interview me anyway, you know what I mean? And so that's a case of, if it really is written well and you show yourself to be a very diligent and serious person, then you know, even in these, it can basically save you completely. So that's I think super important, and what we'll try to focus on today. And then, will I enjoy working with them? And interesting is actually, I think interesting can very much be extracted from your CV, because if you have interesting you know, hobbies, if you've done interesting experiences, I think that all adds to your character and makes them actually more likely to want to talk to you and say, wait, like, how has this person done these things? You know, I'd like to learn more about this person's experience on the CV and whatnot. And in fact, I was specifically asked about some of the more unique experiences I'd had on my CV. So you know, don't be afraid to put in sort of the quirkier sides of your personality and your experience, because I think that always shows that you're a person at the end of the day, and not just a robot who has, you know, leadership, personal impact, entrepreneurial drive, and problem solving. And yeah, again, alongside these 3 traits, teamwork and motivation are a given. Now, how do you show these 4 buckets in a CV? Well, yeah, firstly is content. You need to make sure that the content you put in there actually proves you tick all the requirements. Then is communication. So are you writing the sentences in a way that's clear to understand and quickly? Because the average time spent on a CV is actually like, it's below 10 seconds. It's something ridiculous. And so it has to be very quick to read, and then there just have to be keywords that stand out of the sentences. So communication and aesthetics as well. It has to look pretty. So if you structure it in a way that that is just messy and heavy, it's very likely that they will just put that immediately in the bin. So aesthetics are also equally important. And they somewhat link into communication, but aesthetics is more of it's more of a, it's the communication is less focused on the actual content of what you've written, but more of what it looks like. But again, it still somewhat is a subset of communication. And now, yeah, so how do you express the 4 buckets that we went over? So in a CV, you always have to put in your education and your professional experience, and that basically shows your intellectual capability. And then to show your ability to execute things, you need to show, like, within your professional experiences, within your education, or within any other context, you know, when have you shown leadership? When have you shown impact? When have you had entrepreneurial drive? So, you know, for example, you know, during my degree, there was a conflict during a team project, and I wasn't the team leader, but there was a conflict, and one of the members was, you know, arguing a lot and being unpleasant, and so I put in my CV during education, I put like I designed this project, and also acted as the main sort of as the main conflict resolver, and so you know, and I can say, like, I solved like 3 conflicts or something throughout the project or something. So really put quantified numbers there, and then can you put them in front of a client? So if you have examples of jobs where you've worked in a client-facing role, or if you've done public speaking before, even things as, you know, that seem as unrelated as acting, you know, if you've been a stage actor or something, that is perfectly reasonable to include for public speaking, because actors are actually one of the people that have the best communication, because, you know, that's literally what they do. They're on stage and they have to grab the attention of the audience. So really don't feel like there's any sort of anything's out of bounds for a CV. And then, will you enjoy working with them? As I said, that's more of the personality and what you've done that's interesting. So yeah, hobbies, international experience. A lot of my internships were actually all in different countries, and so that was a great talking point when I was doing my final round with the senior partner, which is generally very intimidating. You know, there's someone who's worked at one of these MBB firms for over 30 years, but he was really interested to hear about my quirky international internships. So yeah, you know, so yeah, just some more points. And okay, so that was content, and now let's look at the communication aspect, which is how do you write all this content that you have about yourself in a way that's easy to read for someone, and in a way that, you know, within 7 seconds it gives off the right energy that you're trying to the right tone you're trying to set. How do you do that? It's not actually that straightforward, but I think one of the most powerful things you can do is start every sentence, every point with an action verb. So never say, like, you know, I worked as you know, as, like, I don't know, as the marketing manager for Tesco, you know, over the summer holiday, blah blah. No, you say, you know, executed 5 marketing projects with you know, the reporting directly to the manager, and you know, increased revenues by 10%. Really start with an action verb. Executed, that's what you've done. You know, built, that's something you've done. And in 7 seconds, I think you can appreciate the difference that makes, having a long intro and going straight into it. You don't have time. You don't have time, both space-wise and time-wise, to put in a long intro. So start with an action verb, and that's a quick fix that you can all do right after this. Actually, is just go to your CV and quickly check all your points. Start with an action verb. Yeah. Now, again, simplicity. A communication here. It's all around this idea of is it punchy and will it stand out to the interviewer in 7 seconds? Really think of it that way when you're building it. And so, you know, make sure that within the first sentence, you may have 2 or 3 sentences for each point you have, but within the first sentence, you really have to hit, you know, hit the key point and say the most impressive thing you've done. And then the elaboration of that will be done in the next 2 pages. So, are there questions? I think I'll answer the questions at the end if that's okay with everyone. Yeah, okay. Yeah, if that's okay, Vera, right? We do a Q&A at the end. That's fine. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so simple, simple and concise. Yeah, don't use words that the consultants won't understand, you know, especially if you're a STEM student. You know, you may have some sort of, you may have done some very niche, cool project, whether it's an internship or a science project, but really put it in words that a business or minded consultant can understand. You know, there's no, you just want to increase the chances of someone understanding it properly and seeing why it's impressive, you know. Like one time, for example, when I was in high school, I organized a meeting with a Nobel Prize winner. And of course, most STEM people would actually just know the name of that person, but I just put, you know, Nobel laureate because that's easier to understand, if you know what I mean. And then, oops, yeah, exactly, as I was saying. Yeah, focus on impact and results. So, you know, as I was saying with the example of the marketing manager or something, really go executed 5 projects which increased revenues by 10%. Really, don't say what you were doing, but what you achieved, if you know what I mean, because that's the only way to measure your capabilities. It's not about what you've done, it's what you've actually achieved, you know what I mean? So I see that a lot actually in people's CVs. You know, it doesn't matter how talented they are. Like a lot of the times, the focus isn't shifted strongly enough on what was actually achieved at the end of the day in solid numbers, because that just makes it easier for the consultant to understand what you're actually capable of. You know, anyone can, you know, be an analyst for 3 months at a good firm, but not everyone can be an analyst at some sort of a company and, you know, and get a recommendation from, you know, the CEO, or get a sort of get a 90% approval rating from their colleagues or something like that. Even things like these, just make sure you have numbers to back what you've done, because that makes it easier for these consultants to understand, because the mind of the consultant is very much sort of evidence-based. They need evidence to understand, to basically quantify the value of the things you've generated. So yeah, exactly, quantify. And yeah, as I said, you know, each point, each idea can be 2 or 3 sentences max. You don't need more than that, and they're not going to read more than that anyway, so do bear that in mind. Yeah, exactly, and every bullet point has to be linked to one of the ideas that we covered. So, you know, whether it's leadership or impact, or you know, communication or something like that. So okay, and now the aesthetics part. This is also a communication, but it's more of a visual communication rather than a sort of intellectual communication. So this response is more managing the emotional response, and the other one was more managing the sort of intellectual response to what you were doing. Yeah, no one here should really be writing more than 1 page for your CVs if you're applying for you know, consulting firms, or in general any sort of business sector company. The main reason is because they just don't have time to read it, and it's likely you just haven't done enough to warrant such a long CV. To give you some context, actually, the Nobel Prize winner that I met, you know, they've been working in science for like 30 years, and their CV is literally one page. You know, if someone's won a Nobel Prize and they can write their achievements in one page, I'm pretty sure everyone here shouldn't have too hard of a time doing that as well. Keep it professional. So, you know, there are, you know, the CV style has evolved over the years to allow for more sort of creative designs, but I think the color schemes and the general structure should remain the same, with a few variations such as icons that you can add, but we'll go into that later. But yeah, don't go crazy with colors. Stick to basically your blacks and your grays, in my opinion. Yeah, make sure you have, you know, you can actually extend the margins on your CV to make them a bit wider, but don't kill your margins. They still have to exist. And yeah, focus a lot on formatting and just making it look pretty in general. Yeah, text size, we don't want size 9, as I said. We don't have that much to say. So yeah, you won't have those many. If you're finding yourself having to reduce the size to 9 to fit your CV on one page, then that just means you haven't ticked the communication box effectively. It's not concise communication. You have to go back and focus on what's really impressive. And yeah, at the top, it always goes in a standard chronological order from the most recent education and the most recent work experience you've done, going backwards in time as you go down. And yeah, again, you know, you do want to sort of guide the reader's attention in those 7 seconds, but if you abuse the bold and underlining tools, that does just turn into a mess as well. So it's very powerful. Please do use underline and bold words for the headings, but within the main bodies of text, I wouldn't use that at all, because you may want to make words stand out, but I think the main tool for doing that is by adjusting the placement of the word and not actually adding these features, because yeah, it can become very chaotic very quickly. And yeah, so the main examples for a standard CV is basically on the very top, you put your personal details, so your name, you know, sometimes on mine, for example, I put my email address, my CV, and my nationality. And yeah, and then generally, you know, because education is basically the main sort of institution that you guys have been in when you're applying, then you'd put education first, then work experience, and then you'd go on to sort of leadership or extracurricular. I'd also argue you can put you know, skills, leadership skills or entrepreneurship skills. So that's what you could call the column after that. You could basically call work experience, like, you know, entrepreneurial skills if they've mainly been in the entrepreneurial area, and then leadership skills underneath or something like that. And then yeah, additional skills or information. And yeah, I mean, the key idea, the key essence is the same. You know, often you can, you know, if you want to explicitly have a column saying entrepreneurial drive, communication, personal impact, then you'd make like a section called like you know, leadership skills or skills, and within the skills you'd put explicitly those core competencies. Now, if you feel like you're able to do that smoothly by just incorporating it into your work experience and education sections, then yeah, that's, you know, that's also fine, but it's just not as explicit and easy to notice. And so this on the left, the layout is more suitable for basically someone who's come out of education. And then on the right, it's more suitable for people who have had some work experience or have worked it for at least 5 or so years. And that's why work experience then suddenly becomes sort of more important than your education. So yeah, undergraduate and professional. There we go. And so the cover letter is, oops. Yeah, cover letter is I normally don't like to spend too much time on a cover letter because it really isn't weighted that importantly. I don't even understand why you know so many companies require them, because the focus is very much on the CV. I'd say it's like 80% CV, 20% cover letter. You know, and that's probably on a bad day. So it could be even more weight towards cover letter. You know, it won't get you the interview, but it can cost you one. So it still has to be good. That's you can't just ignore it. It still has to be good because otherwise they'll see that and they'll chuck your CV in the bin as well. So yeah, spend most of your time on your CV, but also don't just ignore your cover letter. And yeah, basically the cover letter is basically like, who are you? And then, sorry, the CV is like, who are you? And the cover letter is like, why do you actually want the job? You know, it's like, yeah, so think of it as two parts of the puzzle. The cover letter is more explaining why you want the job, your motivations, and why you're, like, it's basically why that job specifically. That's what the cover letter is. Because a CV just says, I'm a great person, and then cover letter is, I'm the best person for this job specifically. So think of it that way. And yeah, it's an extension of your CV. So don't introduce new experiences and topics. Just elaborate and build upon all your experiences to explain why, you know, why consulting at, you know, McKinsey is the only, it's what you need to complete your life. You know, that's what the cover letter has to capture. And yeah, so content and layout of the cover letter, intro. So, you know, why do you want to be a consultant? And then why are you the best to be the consultant? And then deep dive into why specifically management consulting, and then why specifically that firm. And again, don't spend too much time on this. It's not sort of, I mean, yeah, I don't even remember how much time I spent on my cover letter. I drafted it following this exact structure actually, and then I asked a consultant that I'd reached out to on like online or something to check it for me, and that's about it. Yeah, that's what I did. And yeah, and then to give you context, because all of this is to try and get into the first interview. If once you've done the CV, once you've done the cover letter, you probably have to do some sort of test. And McKinsey, Bain, and BCG all have different tests. So unfortunately, that means you'll have to prepare for 3 different types of assessments. McKinsey's used to have a problem-solving test that was paper-based, but now it's a video game, which is much more abstract, and you can't really prepare for it at all. They don't want you to prepare for it. They just want you to relax and try to enjoy it. So I've never done the game because it was introduced literally sort of starting from late 2019. I think it was fully introduced summer of 2020. So I think it's a mysterious one. It's less comforting to have a game other than an exam. And then Bain is basically psychometric tests. So it's pretty standard stuff that you can practice and get good at. There's tricks to it, and I think once you do a few, you'll get used to it. And then BCG is a quantitative reasoning test. So some people practice using the GMAT questions, but again, I think these sort of the exam formats are a lot easier because you can just practice them and get a gist of what's going on. So yeah, that's basically stage 1, which is landing the interview. So we've covered how to build your CV, what the cover letter has to contain, and also sort of roughly the assessment and online process, and hopefully that will get you to the first round. And in the second round, once you're in the first round, sort of the gap between this online assessment and the first round is super important, because they often don't give you a big heads up between the announcement that you made it and the actual date of your first round case interview. So in between that time, we really recommend that you guys start practicing for your case interviews. And in fact, even while you're doing this process, to be completely honest, it would be best if you start already as you prepare your CV and cover letter to familiarize yourself with the case interviews and the personal experience interview. And I think that's really where, as MBB 101, we can really support you guys. Because of our partnership with UCL Consulting Society. In fact, many of you guys might have already sort of been to an MBB 101 event before. Because of that partnership, you do all have a 50% discount off of the full site membership. And so what this does is it lets you access all of our resources at a very heavily discounted price. And there we really do guide you through all of the details of the case interviews and the personal experience interviews, and also some opportunities to see, to reach out to consultants and understand personally with them what it's about. So yeah, please, Vera does have the link. Do check out the website. In fact, I can send the link on the website as well. And it's undergoing refurbishment. The website's currently undergoing a refurbishment, so very soon it will be updated with even more features and functionalities, which we're very excited to share with you guys. So keep an eye out on that as the amount of resources grow and grow. And so on that note, I think we can move to so we've ticked all of that, and I think at this point we can move to questions. I saw that there were a lot of questions in the chat, so I can either go through those or we can just ask. We can just sort of go to a live discussion. I think that's better, actually. Let's do a live discussion. So feel free to just ask me, even if you wrote something in the chat. Just ask me, and you can unmute.
What do you think of skill-based CVs, where you sort of write the skill at the beginning of each experience?
Yeah, sure. I wouldn't write this. You either write the experience or you write the skill, right? So if your skill is, if you have the experience, you don't say the skill. They're separate things. So you know what I mean? So if you're doing a skill-based CV, then you say, okay, I built, 2 models for, modeling air resistance or whatever, blah, blah. You don't say, I did an internship at, a company. No, you really have to focus on the skills. And if you're doing work experience, you focus on the work experience. But yeah, so
which one is better?
Which one's better? I mean, it really depends on what you feel makes you shine the most. The best one is the one that makes you, that shows your strength the most. So if that makes sense.
Okay.
Okay.
People have raised their hands. So Sana,
Oh, yes.
what is your question?
Hi, I had a question about the quantifying of skills and stuff like that. Oftentimes when you're in a specific work experience, it's really hard to quantify exactly what the impact is that you've had. So how would you go about doing that?
Yeah, sure. It's hard to quantify the impact you've had. Could you just share an example of what you mean by that? Because I don't understand what you mean by it's hard to quantify the impact.
So for example, if you have worked in doing some work experience with identifying new partnerships, and so you kind of pass it on to someone else.
I see. Okay. Yeah, well, sure. I mean, basically, if you pass it on to someone else, then you say, if you could say something like, I grew 5 partnerships. You didn't complete it, but you basically created 5 new leads, 5 new partnership leads that's a quantifiable number, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, generally there's always a number you can incorporate into whatever you do.
Okay, thank you.
So.
In terms of presenting education, if it's only meant to be one page, how condensed is your education?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so like, for example, no one really cares how many GCSEs you got, how many A levels you got. So, you know, maybe A levels they kind of do. Yeah, I guess A levels you can put that in, but GCSEs definitely don't. And yeah, you would just put basically name of the school and underneath it, one sentence, one line or two lines, absolute max, saying the areas you focused on and maybe what your A level grades were. That's it. And then for university, the same. You put what your grade is or something, and you write what you think are your key achievements in the context of getting a job in consulting. Okay.
Would you also put down the extracurricular inside underneath the university?
No. Yeah, basically that would be poor communication and segmenting. So education is very much what you've learned. Extracurricular goes in the extracurricular section at the very end. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then Nick also raised his hand.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I just want to ask whether, so maybe there are different kinds of people, right? So some people want to specialize in doing a lot of consulting work experience, but some people maybe like have more general, maybe they want to work in like startups or in some NGOs, etc. Would you say that general kind of CVs which have a wide range of experiences may be at a slight disadvantage compared to business or people who have business oriented experience?
I completely relate to your question, because my CV is a complete mess. You know, it's made up of like, you know, 5 different industries, you know, in all these different countries. And actually, I think it's all about leveraging the strength of something. You know, if you've done internships in a ton of different companies, then, oh, wait a sec, what do consultants do? They go to a ton of different companies and advise them on how to improve. So that's a massive selling point that I leveraged during my application process. Now, if you have done a lot of internships at consulting companies, great. You're comfortable with the environment and the format, you know how it all works. You know, so you leverage the two advantages, both sides to your advantage. So I wouldn't say in any way it's a disadvantage. Yeah. I mean, personally, I would almost say that's an advantage, having a focus on actually the real world and understanding how the real world actually works. I know, me personally, I think that's more important than understanding how having experience in a consulting company previously. But again, this is a very subjective statement, so don't feel fazed by it. Yeah.
And then Holly, and then we can look at the questions in the chat.
Yeah, sure.
Hi.
Hi, Holly.
I want to know more about the networking process. That, like, is it very important, or is there any other ways to do an efficient networking other than linking? Because I'm not sure if people will really reply for that.
Yeah, I completely agree, actually. So the networking process is one of the most uncomfortable parts. And I think at MBB101, we really, you know, we're actually here for a reason, because we want to talk to you guys. So you know, we also have a 7-day free trial for MBB101, and so yeah, do sign up for that. And we are actually launching in mid-February a function that lets you basically have a group discussions with MBB consultants, or also one-on-one. And I think the group sessions are actually included in the membership. I think every sort of 3 months or something, you'll be able to have a one group session with a consultant. So really, I think something that I wish I had is this sort of a MBB101 feature where you can just talk to consultants who actually want to listen to you. Because yeah, as you said, most of them will just ignore you because they get hundreds of messages. That's just the truth. They get hundreds of messages and they have better things to do. So, yeah. Okay. Shall we go to the questions in the chat then? Okay.
Yeah, the chat.
So I think the first one is, before you go to the next section, may great, the grades.
I was like,
So, yeah.
yeah, so I wanted to ask something about the grades. So basically, UCL students who were first years last year, like myself,
Yeah.
we didn't have exams, so we don't have grades for our first year. So if we are now applying to internships and stuff, like, do you think that firms are aware of that? Do you think firms are aware of the fact that like Corona messed up a lot of our kind of exams and so on and so forth?
They definitely know. They definitely know that it messed up things, you know, in generally. Now, when you say you don't have grades, is there not even a predicted grade you can use?
Literally, so for me, I had one exam which would have counted 30% towards my grade, and that's it. And the rest, we were given like a pass-fail exam.
Ah, interesting.
So my transcript just has like X's. I don't even have a transcript.
Oh, interesting.
And
Okay.
basically, that's all of the second years at the moment. So that was like something, like what I did is like I wrote a little explanation for it. I like explained why that's the case, but
In your CV?
no, like
Oh, no.
when I attached this transcript, I
Oh,
mentioned that, but I'm not sure if like there's any better way. I don't know.
No. I mean, you basically, in your CV, what you can do is just put the actual score you got for the one subject that was examined. You know, so you know, when I was in university, like when I was doing the like in 1 year that I was applying, I didn't have the great grades, but I there was one subject I really liked, so I just put like, you know, 85% for this one subject, and that's all. So if you you can also just put in the one subject that does have scores given to you. So yeah,
Right.
do you think does that answer your question, sorry?
Yeah, it definitely does. Just about like, because we don't know, and there's like no detriment policy talk going on, and like a lot of people are like, well, firms have no idea what's going on at universities. So yeah,
Just give them a number. Always give them a number. You know, if there's one number that of an exam you did, just put that in your CV. Like,
okay, I will. Thank you.
Do you think it can be more beneficial to keep the verbs in sentence in the present tense? I think that's I think we can all answer that questions together. You know, if you did something in the past, do we use? I think we should use the past tense. Yeah, I think so. I personally never seen present tense. That's the reason I answer that way. That's all. So yeah, technically, generally speaking, it's past. Yeah. Okay. Our CV is meant to be written in columns. No. Did I say columns? If I said columns, I didn't mean to say that. No. They're basically written in sort of these like chunks of rows, basically. So you have a heading and then subheading, subheading, heading, subheading, subheading. Okay. Then, MBB101, the website's there, and you will have the link. You will get the link for the 50% discount for the website. And that basically that bundles in everything, and you can just use all the resources there. And again, we keep adding things. So, you know, in mid-February, we're scheduled for a big update, and so hopefully that's going to help you guys. In chronological order, is chronological order always needed in a CV? For example, if I have some recent experience I want to write about, but I don't want it to be on top of the other one. Well, okay, if you have recent experience you want to write about, but you don't want it on top. I mean, look, generally speaking, it has to be, there has to be some sort of logic to it, some sort of understandable flow. If everything is chronological in your CV, except that one experience, it's going to stand out, and it won't, aesthetically, it won't be pleasing. So, yeah, if it's something you want to include in your CV, I think that means it must be a good experience that you're proud of, right? So why would you want to hide it and put it below? So no, don't worry about that. I think you can put it in at the top, or basically you can not go for a sort of work experience based structure, but go for a skills based structure where that's where you explain it, and it's sort of not. It doesn't necessarily have to follow a chronological order. So maybe that structure may suit you more. I don't know. I come from a medic background. Would this disadvantage me? Not at all. Yeah, thanks for presentation. I was wondering on how you would tweak a CV for each firm, and also for the why this firm aspect of the cover letter. Is it necessary to focus on a particular deal, or is it better to focus on the value culture of the firm? Yeah, generally, the value and culture of the firm. I'd say if a deal's been done, you know, I think it's been done, right? I think the culture is what probably what stands out the most about each company. So yeah.
To follow up on that, actually, how would we know about the culture? Because I've tried to read up on it, and like some people said the opposite. They were like, "Well, how would you know about the culture if you haven't been to the firm before?" So I'm just like, "Well, how would I know?"
That's where networking comes in, and you know, basically, I asked my consultant friends, and in fact, actually, you know, in the cover letter, I said, you know, speaking with, acquaintances at, BCG. It was clear to me that blah, 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 blah. And so that way they know you've done your homework. That's a good way to also express that you've put in that extra grind of networking. And so yeah, networking is a good way to focus on the culture. And then how do you tweak CV for each firm? I mean, yeah, to be honest, if you're just applying to MBB or just a consulting, I don't think you normally tweak it for different sectors. Yeah, but I didn't tweak mine for each firm, so I don't think it's necessary. Trying to find the balance between quantity and quality. How many work experience do you recommend to include in a one-page CV? However many you can fit on one page, I think, that's it really. What if I have secured a very relevant internship, but it hasn't started yet? Would I still put this in my CV? Yeah, okay, so well done, firstly, for getting that internship. Now the CV, it's meant to show you your skills and what you've done. So yeah, I would argue not to put that in because you haven't done anything yet. You know what I'm trying to say? If you haven't done anything, then what are you going to talk about there? I don't know. If it's really something like, if you really want to put it in, sure, you can say like, I don't know, if it's in the future, then probably not. Yeah, probably not. But yeah, no, but congratulations though, well done. For MBB, is it possible to apply for multiple branches of the same firm? And if so, whether it disadvantages your application? Yeah, so for MBB, you can actually pick which branches you want to apply for in the world. Does it disadvantage your application? No, I don't think so. I mean, I asked the same question when I was applying, and I asked directly to the company when I went to do the exams in their offices, and they said it doesn't matter. There are people who are applying to all these different locations. So no. I mean, if you want to sort of go work in a different country, yeah, go for it. Apply for different locations. There's great places. In the Africa offices, Asian offices. Go explore a bit, guys. You know what I'm saying? Coming from a STEM background, what are the skills MBB are looking for in your education system section? Thank you for the great presentation. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Coming from a STEM background, so yeah, education basically, yeah. Let's not mix things up. In the education section, they want to know about your education. They don't want to know about your skills. You put that in the skills section. You get me? So. Yeah, I guess you just put the impressive things you've done at university. Don't try. I think, yeah, be careful not to muddle those things up. So, yeah, okay. Should we just put expected grade for the latest degree? Yeah. Yeah. Put like 2-1 in brackets predicted or something. Case interview preparation strategy is often suggested to be skills-based. What skills do you think it's more feasible to focus on and most important to focus before jumping into case practice? Yeah, as I said, you have a 50% discount to access all of our resources on the MBB101 website. So I think that will really help guide you. We spent a lot of time actually building these resources, and we had lots of dialogue with students. So I hope that what we've built is something that can really target what you were asking, Nick. So please do check out the discount code that we'll send you after this presentation. Can I add scholarships and awards in education? Yeah, definitely. Award and scholarships are great. If you put UCL, whatever, chemical engineering, underneath you put, awarded like 2 scholarships or something, or 1 scholarship, awarded math scholarship, whatever. But yeah, definitely add that in. That's something good that fits thematically, is thematically appropriate for the education section. How long is the discount code valid for? It's valid for all of January, guys. So you know, you have another 3 weeks basically and there's a 7-day free trial as well, actually. So you can even take that at any point you want. Okay.
Just very quickly, Gallo, you had your hand up for a long time now, so please do go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, hi, and thank you for the presentation. I just had a question like related to like the skill CV and experience CV. So the way I have like my CV structure right now, that I have like the work experience where I worked at, and then like as the skills I learned, and then I briefly explain like what I achieved and like how I show that I actually acquired a strength. So like I tried like to put like an American number and then explain like how I got it from that job. Is that a good approach, or is that like mixing both things that that's not recommended?
Wait, so sorry. You said that you have your work experience section, and then within, and
yeah,
then you have
the work experience. Yeah, let's say like
within the work experience,
like
you put the
firm
skill.
1, and then I have like 3 skills I learned from that firm, and then I explain how I learned it and
I
some
mean,
results.
yeah, basically the one danger there is that it creates repetition, right? Because if you showed like you know, I don't know, good communication at all 3 of your companies, you'll have communication heading appearing 3 times in each of the subsections. So that's basically the one concern.
Okay, yeah, I try to avoid like repeating.
You know what I mean?
Fields,
Yeah. So if you avoid repetition and it still feels clean, then you know, the essence is always the same. You know, just keep it simple, make it easy to read, and if you feel like you've done that, then sure. I wouldn't. It sounds reasonable based on what you've said, and you've used numbers to try and quantify your achievements. So I think that's
okay. Great, thank you.
Okay. Oh yeah, what is MBB101 and what does the subscription entail? Great question. So I might just share screens onto the actual page, onto the page itself, so everyone can see. Okay, MBB101. Okay, so share screens. Here we go. Okay, so yeah, this is MBB101. So it's built by a community of consultants from basically all around the world, and yeah, the subscription gives you access to a few different things. So we've built a how to ace the interviews guide, and this is I think this is the most comprehensive sort of module you'll want to look at. You know, it literally covers everything from how to ace the experience interviews, how the different ways to solve cases, the different types of cases you'll be encountering. And I think different to what you'll see in a lot of other learning resources is that we're really focused on developing a deep understanding of what the rules are to solve a case. We don't want to drill in this concept of you have to memorize certain case structures and whatnot. So I think that's something we really tried to focus on throughout making this. And so yeah, this is what you have, and there's also the case crunch, a recorded case crunch, which was we basically recorded a lot of I think we recorded literally 10 case interviews done live with an MBB consultant. Okay, so you'll have access to a ton of 10 plus case interviews, and I think that's quite unique actually, because how many times do you actually get to see a consultant doing a case interview? It's not there. So yeah, that's what MBB101 is. The subscription is like a monthly package, or you can also just purchase access, permanent access for a specific course you're interested in. So those are the 2 different types, and subscription gives you monthly access. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, one more question from Yasmin. Hi, Yasmin. So what can I put in the education system if I'm just in my first year and don't have a specific grade? Do I put the relevant modules to the job? Yeah, you can put like focusing on. Yeah, you can put like with a focus on XYZ, you know. So don't feel. And if you've had like just any test, even if you've done a quiz or something, if you've done a quiz, you know, and you got like a top grade there, just you can really use that to weigh. You can say, you know, current grade, like, you know, current expected grade, like a 2-1 or something. As long as you have some evidence, some numerical evidence, I would even as early as possible put these numbers in, because that's the language that the interviewer and the person reading your reading your CV are gonna be familiar with. So yeah, do feel free to put a very hypothetical grade in there, and yeah, put your relevant modules. I agree.
And yeah, wishing you all a lovely weekend and a lovely week as well.